Have you ever experienced a moment so pivotal that, even as it unfolds, you sense it's about to reshape your entire world? That was me. I wasn't seeking trouble. I wasn't craving attention or battling boredom. I wasn't even trying to stir the pot. I was simply being courteous. My husband called, explaining he'd forgotten a crucial work file and needed it urgently. He mentioned three of his colleagues were nearby and asked if they could stop by to pick it up. Without hesitation, I agreed. What else do you say when you've been the steadfast wife for years? Cooking, cleaning, raising the kids, folding his shirts just the way he prefers, all while receiving less and less of him in return. So, I said yes. I retrieved the plain brown folder with his company's logo from the closet. I even tidied my hair a bit, applied some lip balm, not to impress, just enough to mask the traces of earlier tears. The kind of weary look you wear when loneliness is your constant companion. Then came the knock. Three sharp, assured raps, as if they belonged there. When I opened the door, even now, if I shut my eyes, I can still feel the breeze that swept in with them, not from the outside, but from a subtle shift, a quiet transformation. The moment my life realigned itself without warning. They entered, all smiles and laughter, carrying the scent of cologne and corporate air, and something else I hadn't felt in ages: attention. Genuine, vibrant attention. It wasn't theatrical, not at first. No intense gazes or forbidden gestures. Just Marcus looking at me like I wasn't just part of the scenery. Jared's jokes sparking laughter I hadn't felt in months. Sam noticing the half-finished painting in the corner and asking, "You're an artist?" No one asks me that anymore. Honestly, I don't even ask myself. They were only there to grab a file. But something else was picked up that night. Something within me. Something I didn't realize I'd set aside. Before I knew it, I was pouring coffee the way I used to for Daniel. Back when he still looked at me with intention. We gathered around the kitchen island, talking, laughing, and I thought, this feels good. Is that so wrong? But what I didn't grasp then is that the smallest gestures can unlock the largest doors. When you swing that door wide enough, you don't just invite people in. You invite consequences, truths, and temptations that settle at your table unnoticed. That night began with a file and ended with me questioning everything I thought I understood about love, loyalty, and myself. Before we dive deeper, let me ask, have you ever done something you knew might cause pain, but it felt so vital just to feel anything again? If so, keep reading, because what happened next? Even I couldn't have predicted it. Subscribe to Heartfelt Tales Unfold if you believe some stories aren't simply right or wrong, but exist in the intricate, painful gray. This is your place. Trust me, this story isn't what you expect. To understand what came after that night, you need to know the world I was living in. Things don't collapse overnight. They erode gradually until you wake up and realize you're a shadow in your own life. I'm 32, married to Daniel for nearly 9 years. We met in college. He was ambitious, driven, with a clear path ahead. I was the dreamer, always sketching, painting, believing in grand love and leisurely mornings. Back then, he made me feel extraordinary, holding my hand like he'd never let go. But somewhere along the way, that faded, not in a single blow, no betrayal or shouting matches, just a slow, silent drift. He landed a job in corporate real estate, and it began to consume him. First came the long hours, then late night meetings, then the silence. He'd come home, toss his keys on the counter, offer a half smile that never reached his eyes, and collapse on the couch. Dinner would be cold by then. So would I. It wasn't his physical absence that stung most, it was the emotional void. I felt like a roommate, a glorified caretaker, the woman who washed his clothes and managed his schedule, but not the one he once couldn't bear to be apart from. I tried everything. New recipes, new lingerie, weekend getaways, even stepping back to see if he'd notice. He didn't. Don't misunderstand, Daniel isn't a bad man. He's decent, provides, doesn't raise his voice. But maybe that's the issue. He doesn't do anything. No passion, no conflict, no curiosity, just routine. I stood beside a man who stopped seeing me long ago, hoping he'd turn and realize I was still there. We have 2 kids, both in school now, leaving the house quiet during the day. Too quiet. You'd think I'd relish the calm, but an empty house when your heart is empty too. It echoes. Every creak of the floorboards feels like a reminder that no one's coming to find you. The walls began to feel less like a sanctuary and more like a confinement. Now, about the men who walked through that door. Marcus is the type who commands attention effortlessly, with a grin that suggests he knows something you don't. He talks fast, laughs louder than needed, always has a quip. But Marcus observes, really observes. He'd ask something simple, like how I take my coffee, but look at me in a way that felt like he was peeling back layers, seeing me raw. I didn't realize how desperately I wanted to be seen. Then there's Sam, the quiet one, soft-spoken, courteous, hands in his pockets, like he's safeguarding something fragile. But his quietness is deceptive. He notices details, like when I tugged my sleeve to hide a burn from cooking, asking, "You okay?" Or when he praised a painting Daniel hadn't acknowledged in weeks. He listens with his entire presence, and after years with someone who didn't notice a haircut, that attention felt perilous. Jared, on the other hand, is blunt, loud, calling things as he sees them. His first words to me were, "You don't seem like someone who enjoys boredom." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was true. He teases Daniel relentlessly about being rigid, about needing a vacation. But beneath the humor, there's a glint, a challenge, as if he sees the fractures in our marriage and dares me to examine them. The 3 are distinct, yet together they filled every void Daniel left. Laughter, attention, curiosity. Each, in their own way, rekindled parts of me I'd nearly forgotten. Playful, passionate parts that still yearned to feel alive. I was lonely, not just for physical closeness, but for being asked how I was truly doing, for surprises, for being someone's favorite. There's something terrifying about realizing you've built a life with someone who wouldn't notice your absence, except for unwashed laundry. Even scarier was letting 3 strangers into that space and feeling more alive in an hour than I had in 3 years. It wasn't love or lust. Not yet. It was a hunger for connection, for being seen, heard, held, even if only through words or glances. When they left, and the door closed behind them. The silence returned, but I didn't feel guilty. I felt awake. That terrified me most, because once you awaken from a numb existence, you can't pretend to sleep again. It started on a Tuesday, one of those endless, dreary days where time drags. The house's silence wasn't soothing, it was deafening. I'd just cleaned the kitchen after lunch, kids at school, Daniel at work, folding laundry while a reality show droned in the background to mimic company. My phone buzzed. Daniel, no greeting, just a text. Forgot the Waxford file. Big meeting. Can you grab it? Marcus, Jared, Sam will pick it up. Be there in 20. No thank you, no how's your day. Just orders. I stared, sighed, and set the phone down. I fetched the worn brown file marked Wexford Group Q2 from the cabinet by the stairs, the one I'd reminded him to pack the night before, while he scrolled his phone, muttering, "Uh-huh." I placed it on the counter and glanced around. A buzz stirred in me, not nerves, but something akin to anticipation, maybe curiosity. I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror. Messy bun, hoodie, bare face. I didn't aim to impress, but something urged me to loosen my hair, let it fall, apply a touch of lip balm, not lipstick, just enough to feel less invisible. 15 minutes later, the doorbell rang. 3 knocks, then the bell, crisp and confident, like they knew I was waiting. In a strange way, I was. I opened the door, and there they stood. Marcus in front, all charisma, holding a takeaway coffee like he owned the place. Jared behind with a cheeky grin. Sam, quiet, hands in his coat pockets. "Hey," Marcus said, grinning. "Hope we're not interrupting." "No," I replied. "It's fine. Come in." I stepped aside and the house's air shifted, not just their presence, but the energy, warmth, movement they brought. They walked in like it was routine. Jared teased about our doormat. "Bless this mess. Relatable." Sam noticed my painting by the hallway. "Yours?" I nodded, surprised. "Yeah, just a hobby." "It's not just a hobby," he said softly. "That's talent." I brushed it off, but my chest tightened, a compliment I hadn't heard in ages. I handed Marcus the file. "Here you go." "Thanks," he said, then glanced into the kitchen. "Is that coffee I smell?" I hesitated. This was meant to be quick, 10 minutes max. But instead of waving them off, I said, "Want a cup before you go?" Marcus smiled. "Would love one." They followed me to the kitchen, pulled out chairs, settled in. Jared poked at fridge magnets, chuckling over a grocery list, with wine circled twice. Sam asked about the kids. Marcus leaned on the counter, watching me make coffee like it was fascinating. The kettle whistled, mugs clinked, and the room felt warmer. We talked, laughed, shared stories about Daniel's seriousness at work. Jared joked, "Does he ever smile at home?" I smiled, but it felt hollow. He used to. Marcus didn't laugh. He looked at me, really looked, and said, "He's lucky." That moment lingered, heavy with meaning. I set his mug down, hands trembling slightly. "I think he forgets sometimes," I said before I could stop myself. The room quieted. Sam cleared his throat, shifting topics, but the tension remained. Not uncomfortable, but electric, whispering. "You feel this too, don't you?" They stayed nearly an hour. 3 men sipping coffee in a house that had forgotten laughter, and me, forgetting I was the tired woman who'd stopped expecting surprises. For the first time in months, I felt seen. When they left, I slowed, stalling, wishing the file had vanished so they'd return. Marcus winked. Jared said, "Save some coffee for next time." Sam looked at me a beat too long before stepping out. When the door closed, I didn't feel I'd just helped Daniel. I felt I'd let something in, a small, quiet spark. Even if nothing happened, something already had. After they left, I leaned against the door, heart racing. The house was quiet again, but heavier, like it was holding its breath. In the kitchen, 3 mugs sat, one half full, one with a lipstick mark I didn't recall leaving, one still warm. I realized I didn't want them to leave, not just for the laughter or compliments, but for how I saw myself through them. I sat, replaying every word, every glance, every accidental touch. Was I imagining it? Overthinking? Nothing happened, but something did, didn't it? Marcus's voice echoed. "He's lucky, you know." Sam's smile when I mentioned painting. Jared's ease, like we'd been friends forever. They treated me like I was present, not furniture. That scared me. I hadn't realized how much I missed that until I felt it again. Guilt crept in later, like fog under a door. That night, I sat beside Daniel on the couch. Same as always. Dinner done, kids in bed, dishes washed, together but apart. He scrolled his phone, chuckling at a meme. I asked about his meeting. "Fine," he said, eyes on the screen. I wanted to tell him, not about the coffee or flirting, but how I didn't recognize us, how I needed him to see me. But I knew he'd say, "I'm tired," and nod. Cheating wasn't the coffee. It was letting others show me what he forgot. I went to bed early, staring at the wall, replaying Marcus's wink, hating how much I loved it. The next morning, I looked different in the mirror, not changed, but aware someone saw me. I chose a blouse over a hoodie, added mascara, red lipstick. Before groceries, I wiped it off, telling myself it was too much. My phone buzzed in the store. "Marcus, thanks for the coffee. Great taste." Innocent, but the undertone wasn't. I typed, deleted, and wrote nothing. The silence screamed. All afternoon, a tug of war raged in my chest between who I'd been and who I was becoming. I wasn't chasing anything, but I wasn't stopping it either. That terrified me. I drafted notes in my phone, not love letters, just thoughts I couldn't voice. He looked at me like I mattered. Why do I feel more myself with strangers than with my husband? If wanting is a crime, I'm guilty. I deleted each one, but they lingered. I checked my phone too often, replaying fleeting moments that felt like lifetimes. I questioned everything. Was I happy? Did I love Daniel, or just the memory of us? Why did kind words from strangers feel like oxygen after drowning? It wasn't about them. It was about me, the parts I'd buried under routine and disappointment, the woman I was before I became invisible. It didn't end with coffee. I told myself it would, just a fleeting moment. But I knew that door wasn't just for the file. Next morning, Marcus texted, "Thanks again for the coffee. Daniel's lucky." That last line wasn't a compliment. It was a reminder someone noticed me. The timing felt deliberate, like he was thinking of me. I didn't reply, not because I didn't want to, but because I did. Later, Jared sent a Facebook friend request. No message, just the request. I hesitated, then accepted. Notifications followed. Jared liked your photo. Me in a red dress from our anniversary trip. Before kids, before silence. Then another, a painting from lockdown. A woman in a field, arms outstretched, pleading to be seen. No comments, just likes. Quiet validation, saying, I see you. Sam was different. No texts, no likes. But when they dropped something off for Daniel, he lingered by my easel, studying a half-finished piece. It's beautiful, he said softly. It's not done, I replied. That's the best part, he said. It's becoming. I stayed silent, afraid I'd cry. Daniel didn't notice the tension, the glances, my flushed cheeks. He was too busy, phone in hand, laptop open. I could have been covered in paint, and he wouldn't have looked. Then Daniel suggested a game night. I almost laughed. He strolled into the kitchen while I loaded the dishwasher, saying, The guys want to come over Friday. Casual thing, food, games, like old times. There were no old times with his colleagues. He never invited them like this. I should have said no, reminded him we barely talked. Hadn't had a date night in months. Instead, I said, Sure, sounds fun. I spent too long getting ready, not to impress, but because I couldn't not care. The red blouse returned, lipstick stayed. When they arrived, it felt light. Laughter, drinks, jokes. Jared brought a board game, Marcus wine, Sam a homemade cheesecake. Daniel was cheerful, joking, almost like the man he used to be. It felt normal until it didn't. Halfway through, Jared suggested, Never have I ever, grinning mischievously. Come on, don't be dull. Daniel shrugged. Why not? The bottle opened, rules set, fingers raised, drinks downed. It started innocently. Never have I ever lied on a resume. Never have I ever been arrested. Laughter echoed. Then the questions slowed, grew heavier. Never have I ever thought about someone else while in a relationship. Jared raised an eyebrow. Eyes darted. I didn't drink, but my heart stuttered. Then Marcus leaned forward, voice low. Never have I ever wanted something I couldn't have. The room froze, breath loud in the silence. No one spoke. Marcus drank, eyes locked on mine. No smirk, no wink, just the drink. Something in me twisted, tight, hot, scared. In that moment, we both knew the game was over. After Marcus's, never have I ever wanted something I couldn't have. And that deliberate sip, the room didn't recover. People laughed nervously. Jared joked about wanting a Tesla. Daniel chuckled, oblivious, on his third glass of wine. But I couldn't laugh. I felt exposed, like someone had seen the parts I'd hidden under duty and routine. That night, something shifted in me. I noticed Marcus's every move, leaning too close when offering wine, his fingers brushing mine, his glances when he thought no one saw. But I also noticed Daniel fading, his laughter dulling, eyes glazing. He sprawled on the couch, mumbled about being tired, and drifted off mid-conversation, mid-me. I watched him, mouth slightly open, one shoe on, and felt nothing. No sympathy, just a quiet ache. The man I once begged to come to bed now slept through a storm brewing around me. When the game ended, Sam stood. Thanks for the night, he said, eyes soft, like he sensed something had shifted. Jared hugged me, whispering, Next time, real dares. My heart pounded. Marcus stood slowly, glancing at Daniel's snoring form, then at me. Need help cleaning up? His voice was cautious, but his eyes weren't. I should have said no, shut the door. Instead, I said, sure, just a few things. He followed me to the kitchen. I stacked plates, trying to stay busy, but he leaned against the counter, watching. You okay? He asked. I nodded too fast. Yeah, just tired. He tilted his head. Sure, that's all? I froze, just long enough for him to notice. Sometimes tired means something else, he said softly, like forgotten or lonely. I turned, rinsing a clean glass, hands shaking. I'm fine, Marcus. Okay, he said, but neither of us believed it. Silence stretched. He stepped closer, not touching, but close enough to feel his presence. It's crazy, he said, how someone can live with you, sleep beside you, eat your food, and still not see you. My breath caught. He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear, slow, like he'd rehearsed it. I didn't move, didn't speak, because I wanted it, the touch, the feeling of being wanted, seen, powerful. He leaned in, close enough to feel his breath, smell the wine. Then he kissed me, slow, intentional, offering a choice. I didn't stop him. It was brief, barely a breath, but long enough. When we parted, we said nothing. He looked at me, knowing everything had changed. He grabbed his keys, walked to the door, and said, I'll see you soon. Then he was gone. I stood in the dim kitchen, surrounded by dirty glasses and candle wax. Daniel still asleep. I touched my lips, heart pounding so loud the walls seemed to hear it. I'd let something in, not just Marcus, but something deeper, darker, waiting to be seen. Now it was out, and there was no going back. Subscribe to Heartfelt Tales. Unfold. This story only grows more tangled, and you won't want to miss the spiral. Nothing looked different the next day. Glasses washed, bottles tossed, furniture unchanged. Daniel never asked why his colleagues stayed late, who cleaned up. But I noticed everything. Marcus's kiss lingered, not just on my lips, but in my mind, unlocking something. The house's silence wasn't peaceful or lonely. It screamed with unsaid things. My phone buzzed next morning. Marcus. Last night was something. Simple but heavy. I didn't respond, typing and deleting, turning the phone over like it could burn. Later, another text. You okay? That one hit hard. No one had asked me that with sincerity in so long. The messages kept coming. Small, deliberate. Past a cafe that smells like your kitchen. Do you always wear that red blouse for company? Still thinking about you. My heart raced, not from excitement, but fear, knowing. I silenced my phone around Daniel, jumped at every buzz. At a team barbecue, Jared smirked, whispering, You're glowing lately. Late nights. No one heard, but I knew his meaning. His jokes grew pointed, hinting he knew or was waiting. Sam changed. No eye contact, no lingering, just polite nods. It hurt, unexpectedly. Daniel noticed nothing. Not the tension, my mood, my headaches to avoid closeness, my longer showers to breathe. He'd kiss my forehead like a sibling and sink into the couch. The gap between us widened, heavy like fog. I stopped wearing lipstick, dressing up, then felt guilty realizing I'd only done it for others. I'd apply makeup, then wipe it off before Daniel got home. erasing the part of me that wanted to be desired. I stopped painting, humming, moving freely. I grew cautious. Every knock, every message, every moment alone replayed that kiss, that heat, my choice not to pull away. Daniel didn't know, but I did. I'd crossed a line, not physically beyond that moment, but emotionally, venturing somewhere forbidden. Late at night, with Daniel asleep, I'd whisper, "What are you doing?" No answer came, just guilt, ache, and pull. Once someone sees a buried part of you, you don't want to be invisible again. I think about that night in flashes, like a movie I shouldn't have starred in. Did I cross a line or wake from a loveless sleep? Some days I feel guilty, others alive. Most days split. It's blurry, like fog hiding danger. I didn't tell Daniel, not to hide, but because he wouldn't understand. What could I say? Your coworker kissed me while you slept on the couch. I stopped reaching for you because someone else did. He'd give that blank, tired stare, breaking me more. He hasn't seen me in years. I don't know if I want to confess something he never protected, but I've changed, subtly, permanently. It's not just Marcus, Jared, or Sam. It's me, starving for affection, acknowledgement, a simple, "I see you." I've given everything, meals, schedules, devotion, getting silence in return. When someone offered a drop of attention, I drank like I was dying. Emotional starvation blurs boundaries, justifies what you once condemned. The wrong hands start feeling like home. I didn't sleep with anyone, didn't meet Marcus in secret, didn't make promises, but something happened, real, transformative. I betrayed something, maybe not my vows, but my values, my sense of self, the woman I swore to be. Yet I don't feel villainous, just human. A woman carrying an ache too long, stumbling into a moment without pain. The moment passed, leaving an echo. I think about confronting Daniel. Do you love me? Or are we just roommates with shared bills? He'd say, of course, then ask about dinner. I think about telling Marcus to stop texting, but I fear losing that spark. I check my phone for his name, scroll old messages to feel seen. Some nights I wonder, is this how people unravel? Not in explosions, but quiet surrenders, a conversation, a glance, a kiss, a silence stretched too long. I didn't cheat, but I'm not innocent. I'm not sure I want to return to who I was. Once you feel alive, even briefly, you question every part of your life, even the ones with your name on the deed. Have you ever felt invisible in a relationship? Doing everything right, loyal, quiet, but still fading? If so, maybe you understand why I acted. Or maybe you don't, and I can accept that. Was I wrong to want to be seen? Was it betrayal or a warning I ignored too long? Would you have confessed, shut the door, or stood in your kitchen, heart pounding, wishing someone would say, "You matter. I see you. Be honest." We don't talk enough about the slow unraveling when you love someone who stopped loving you back and never said it. Share your story or thoughts below. If you're still here, thank you. I didn't think anyone would be. If this resonates, if you've stood in that gray space between right and real, you belong here. Subscribe to Heartfelt Tales Unfold. This is where we share love's unspoken parts, the stories that keep you awake. We don't judge. We unfold together. You can keep every vow and still betray your heart, your truth, yourself. No one warns you about breaking quietly when no one saw the cracks. That night, I let in a truth I'd avoided. I was lonely, aching, living so safely, I forgot intentional touch. The real danger isn't temptation, it's numbness. Once you wake from it, you can't pretend you're okay. I never told Daniel, and maybe I won't. It wouldn't undo the kiss, restore his love, or erase years of silence. Instead, I changed. I lock the door differently now, with awareness. Some doors shouldn't open, but those we do reveal who we are, who we've become, who we've hidden. If you're at a door, emotional or otherwise, pause. Why are you reaching? Curiosity, loneliness, truth. You're letting in yourself, and you won't be the same. Thank you for hearing my story. Subscribe to Heartfelt Tales Unfold. If you believe in the messy, human, unspoken, if you're still here, maybe you've been there too. You're not alone.